anyone on camera.
All right. We're live.
The Rules and City Government Committee Joint Committee meeting to order. Please note for the record, Alderman Arnett and Alderman Chandelmeyer are present from the Rules Committee. And Alderman Savage, would you like to take roll for the Environmental Matters Committee? I can't hear you.
You could approve your agenda first.
Okay, I was doing a roll call first, as it says on my agenda. So would you please, Alderman Savage, take roll for your committee?
I'm being told that we have to do it separately.
Okay. All right, then I have done roll call for the Rules and City Government Committee, and I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Our committee.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Savage?
All right, now I'm going to call to order the October 3rd meeting for Environmental Matters. And for the record, all the members are present.
Or at least audio, visual.
That means I'm present.
That's right. Is there a motion to approve the Environmental Matters agenda?
So move.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Can we make a special announcement that because there's people here that I think are here for the 3 o'clock Rules Committee, and Jody is one of them. I don't want them to sit through this, which is 014 only, when you're coming at the end of the agenda for the 3 o'clock meeting or the Market House lease. So we don't want to abuse your time.
Thank you, Alderman Arnett, for making that announcement. And you're absolutely correct. So anyone that's here strictly for rules and the agenda as it's been presented, that meeting starts at 3. So we will be addressing only 01425, the annual comprehensive plan for 2040 in this meeting at 1 o'clock. Alderman Chandelmeyer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Point of order question. So I doubt we'll be this efficient, but hypothetically, if we knock out 014 in 15 minutes, will we be taking a break? That got audible laughter from Alderman Savage. Will we be taking a break all the way until 3 o'clock for the formal Rules and City Government meeting? Or will we just roll into that normally? Just trying to figure this out here.
Well, I would yield to the city attorney. But I think because the Rules and City Government Committee meeting has been announced publicly for 3 o'clock, that we may have to stick to that schedule.
Okay, thank you.
There are also just a point of information. We have to give the staff 20 minutes to make the technology transfer for broadcast.
I'm sorry.
There needs to be a 20-minute gap between meetings so the studio can make the transfer.
Of course, yes. Thank you. Okay, so we're on to legislation.
Madam Chair, sorry, I have one other thing I need to do for Environmental Matters. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from 9/11?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Sorry. Back to you.
Okay, then we're on to our legislative agenda. And we're discussing 01425, implementation of Annapolis Ahead Comprehensive Plan 2040. Now, this committee has already addressed, and there are, I believe, 6 amendments, 3 of which we have already addressed in a previous meeting. Amendment 1, which carried favorably, Amendment 2, which carried favorably, and Amendment 3, no action was taken. So that takes us to Amendment 4. And Alderman Arnett, that would be your amendment. So would you
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right. So this amendment is focusing on what page it's on. It's focusing on 2124-010 purposes, subsection A, and it's reorganizing and embellishing what is proposed in the current legislation. And the reason that I think this is important to do is the way in the current legislation it's written, the purposes are promoting the supply of affordable housing. I don't think that is the primary purpose for, it is one of the purposes, but not the primary purpose for the legislation. And then what I do is to go in after the reordering is expand on some of the sections from what's in the current legislation. So the promoting and installation and use of infrastructure, such as sidewalks, trails, bikeways, transit, and I'm adding here active transportation, parks, neighborhood services, such as but not limited to daycare, healthcare, shopping, dining, entertainment. And then it goes on. I'm assuming everyone has read it. But the purpose there is to make the legislation consistent with what appears elsewhere in the legislation that says that the comprehensive plan, in addition to plan development, is considering community benefits. And these are some of the community benefits that we would like I would certainly like considered when we're looking at new development or redevelopment. So that's the purpose of the legislation. I'm certainly open to any questions, but I would hope both committees would recommend favorable.
Alderman, may I ask a question? It seems you have deleted the new language that began on page, I guess it's page 1 of your amendment, and replaced it with the new language on page 2. Can you tell me what the difference is?
Well, I thought I had just tried to do that. The differences are it's the reorganizing of the 6 items and adding a 7th, and it is embellishing, rewording within each of the items things that add more detail in terms of community services and again, things like daycare, healthcare, mentioning those specifically, dining and entertainment. So on page 1 is the new proposed language. That's not the old language.
I'm looking at the amendment as presented, and it is what is in blue that you're proposing. Am I correct? What is in red? It is what has a strike through.
That's correct.
I don't have anything in blue.
That's correct.
So that's why I asked you to reiterate. because you were
I see. Oh, yes. So, yes, you're referring to a change in item 5, where it currently reads to promote design, and that was taken out and the word development was put in, and I'm proposing to put the word design, which I think is more comprehensive than development. So it's to promote design that takes into account the natural characteristics of the site and the placement of structure. So I'm actually proposing to return to the original language as opposed to the red language that strikes design and puts in development.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. My question had to do with the number 6, however, and the items subsets of number 6. But clearly you've stated in more detail the specifics in those items and adding a 6th item under number.
Right. So it's a reorganization of the items under 6 subsections A through F to put promoting a mix of land use types within development projects, mixed use, as the first priority, and supporting the comprehensive plan as the first priority. And then I moved up promoting an installation and use of infrastructure such as sidewalks, trails, bikeways, and transit, meaning active transportation, parks, neighborhood services such as but not limited to, etc. And then promoting the supply of affordable housing, especially multifamily, and it mentions the missing middle, which is all consistent with what's in the comp plan that can be developed. And then promoting physical connections to the area of waterways. I think that's a very important thing. And promoting and linking open spaces for environment, and then fostering improvements to the environment, which is new, but it's something Alderman Savage and I have been working on, and agree that when we're doing these developments, we need to also take into account the environment. We'll get into some discussion about things like that later on in rules when we talk about duplexes and expanding the non-impervious space. But this is, and we did talk about this at rules, and I did coordinate it with the director and the director of long-term planning. I certainly welcome any input from them about their comfort level on this reorganization and embellishment.
Well, let me ask, is Mr. Jakubiec or Mr. Lashinsky in council chambers? And I see Mr. Jakubiec.
Madam Chair, we're both here. Chris Jakubiak speaking now. And
Eric Lashinsky, Chief of Comprehensive Planning.
we think this amendment is nicely worded and consistent with the intent of the ordinance as drafted. And we have nothing more to add. It's fine. It's a reordering of priorities. And congratulations. It's well stated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion from Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm good with this. I think it meets the original intent and expands upon it. And I'm fully support what you're proposing.
Alderman Channemeyer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only question was, does changing design or development back to design have any significant impacts, or is it just
None whatsoever.
All right,
Not at all.
cool.
Yep.
Then I would entertain a motion.
So move for a favorable recommendation on behalf of rules.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Do we need to do it for environment? So I would make a motion for favorable recommendation of amendment for an environmental matter.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Amendment 5, Savage Amendment. Lengthy amendment.
Okay. Can I give an introduction? Let's see. So Amendment 5 is it is lengthy. What started this was the Planning Commission findings and recommendations. They recommended to adjust the language for green roofs, as well as the definition for that and accessory structures. And while I was at that, I had to add some language regarding rooftop dining, specific rooftop dining allowances, as well as tweaks to the height limit bump that is being proposed. So to take this, so Madam Chair, that's the general overview. I don't know, do you want me to go through this in sections? Or did you want to hear from staff, well, actually, I guess might be best just to go through it in sections and then we could get staff and committee input on the various sections.
I would really like to hear the responses to the planning commission. Is it easy to pull out those things and address their questions first? Or is
Yeah.
everything embedded in all of your amendment?
It's all embedded in this amendment. Do you want me to read the planning commission recommendations on this?
I think we have it attached, do we not? Yes, we do.
We do. But if you look at the amendment, the first section, so let's see, I'm going to have the best way to do this. If you go down to page 6
What your amendment?
of the amendment, because this is, I think, the best way to look at it. It'll show you the changes as it looks in the legislation. Page 6 would be this first section, green roof standards in the historic district. And again, this is one of the first specific area of improvement that the Planning Commission recommended we look at. And so, again, the purpose is just to provide more of a definition and some standards. Makes it clear that this section only applies to green roofs proposed in the historic district. The letter C, design performance standards, it includes things dealing with just stating that it needs to be designed for stormwater retention and attenuation, as well as thermal performance, structural waterproofing details, reversibility as far as being able to remove it without damage to the historic fabric, visibility and placement, to make it clear that it should not be placed above the roof line from public right-of-ways. That's in number 4. And also, it says, unless explicitly approved as compatible by the Historic Preservation Commission. Number 5 details some of the drainage and irrigation requirements. And then 7 is maintenance, which makes it clear that, we need to make sure that these don't become unmaintained and covered with weeds or dying plants. And we need to make sure they're maintained, especially in the historic district. And then requires that staff inspects, the property owner inspects these facilities. And D just lists some ideas for submittals.
Alderman, may I
Yes.
interrupt you? Was there no 6 under letter C?
Oh, good catch. Yeah, 7 should be number 6. I think that's because I deleted number 6.
Where, what page are we on now?
This would be page 7. You'll see a number 5 and a number 6. I'm sorry, number 5 and a number 7. But number 7 should be number 6. Cynthia, could you make note? Okay, thank you. So that's basically, and then it just clarifies in F that the green roofs can qualify for the stormwater management credit program. So that's basically quick run through. If there's specific questions about it, or if you want to hear from staff.
Madam Chair, could I ask a couple of context questions before? I do want to hear from staff, but I wanted to ask a couple of questions to set some context.
Please.
Thank you. So this is rooftop
Green roofs.
green roofs, that's what I was searching for, only for structures in this area on Dock Street. I actually think it's pretty good rules for rooftop structures everywhere, but I'm worried that there are parts elsewhere in the code for green roofs, and want to make sure that this is consistent with or not overriding or is distinctly different from how things are treated. And the same kind of context question in the city code in Title 21, 64,540, general standards for restaurants 2, subsection B, has a whole section on rooftop dining, which is generic to the city.
Do one thing at a time.
Right. So, okay, well, this was just to set context. So, oh no. What is this?
It's the screen.
Sorry.
It's
My
screensaver.
computer's acting weird.
Let me turn it off.
Sorry. So that
Hey,
was sort of.
may
I
I-
think
Go ahead, Alden.
The context I wanted to set is there are things in here that seem to be clearly defined as specific to the Dock Street area that parallel or may parallel broader definitions throughout the city. So that I'm just setting that as a context when staff make their comments.
Well, then I'd like to ask Mr. Kubiak and Mr. Lashinsky for your reaction to this section on green roofs, and particularly as it relates to the historic district.
Well, the Planning Commission recommended a definition of green roofs. And in fact, some public comment centered on that question too. And this does an incredible job describing what a green roof is and what the requirements are and what the standards staff would apply in allowing green roofs are. Even the HPC would review projects and look at the green roof that would be proposed and have some standards to apply in considering whether they're consistent with the HPC standards. So this is this section of the amendment is very well put together and I think would be very workable for us. Eric, do you have anything to add?
Not at all. I concur with the comment.
Well,
Very
and I-
technically sound and spot on. I think any jurisdiction would be envious to have standards like this for their downtown for green roofs.
Okay, and my question was going to be if it's doable, and I think you just said that it is doable for your staff.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, going on, Alderman Savage, do you want to address the next section or?
Yes, that's, yeah, unless there are any other questions on that. All right. So the next section would be on page 8. And you'll see the new section called Rooftop Accessory Structure Design Guidelines. And there's 3 different sections within that, A, B, and C. A just details the materials and finishes. And so that just clarifies that accessory structures, make sure that they match or complement adjacent roof materials. Again, more of a visual, trying to establish some visual standardness there. Number 2 speaks to some of the guardrails or screenings that may be installed and just states they have to complement and integrate with the building architecture. B is visibility minimization. Make sure that any equipment enclosures, planters, things related to the dining are designed to reduce perceived bulk and maintain the historic roof line. Again, just trying to respond to some of the concerns we've heard from the public about, preserving the historic character. C, prohibited features, makes it clear that no covered accessory structure shall include space for dining and bar use or other habitable uses. Again, because I think the intention, I believe, is to allow rooftop dining, but we want to make sure that there aren't rooftop I think the original, at least the intention is not to allow rooftop bar use. And I really want to make sure we don't allow rooftop habitable spaces. I think the architect, or no, one of the property owners, I think stated that they wanted to add rooftop rooms in his testimony to the planning commission, and that kind of was a flag in my head that I wanted to make sure we clearly prohibit that, because that's not anybody's intention, I believe. And so, yeah, that's the intention of that section. Any questions on that?
Well, may I ask, you skipped a section on applications, submittals that
I
came
don't.
prior to the section. Starts on the bottom of page 7, goes over to top of page 8.
Oh, that's related to. Okay, yeah, that's related to the green roof, but I do see we need to have another edit there, Cynthia. That F should be on page 8. The F should be a E. Again, that's, I think, because I deleted one of those. But yeah, so that's related to the last section, Madam Chair.
Okay. Questions? I see Alderman Arnett.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm having a little bit of difficulty in going back to the original legislation, which is in part talking about things that can happen. It's talking about the comprehensive plan and plan development. Then it's talking about things that can happen on top of roofs in a specific section of the downtown area, the Dock Street section. And it seems like it's presuming, the legislation is presuming that there's going to be a green roof, and presuming there's going to be dining. There are buildings that can go in on Dock Street that could be infill buildings that aren't necessarily restaurants or hotels. They could be all kinds of buildings. So I'm finding that we're kind of in two different worlds here with this legislation. So that's one comment, and I would certainly entertain the views of the planning staff. Then the other general comment is, it feels to me like these rooftop rules, why they are pertaining to Dock Street only, pretty good rules for all rooftop greenery or rooftop structures throughout the city. Now, I know we can't do that at this late date, but it would be more comfortable for me if we made these more generic. So that would be my question about clarification from the staff.
Are you referring to the amendment or the general legislation?
Well, I'm
Or both?
actually referring to both. The general legislation, as I said, has three parts: the plan development, the rooftop on Dock Street, and the 3250 rule, which is fortunately back in the back, and nobody's paying a lot of attention to it because I love the rewrite. But on this section specifically, we seem to be jumping from a more generic redevelopment of buildings, any building within Dock Street, to presumptions about what the redevelopment would be, or maybe we're presuming if the redevelopment on Dock Street in any building would include a green roof or would include rooftop dining, these would be the rules obtainable. And I just want to I want to see if I'm thinking about this correctly and make sure that that's how the staff.
I mean, that sounds like a big picture question.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said, Alderman Savage. You questioned something.
Well, I'm trying to stay focused because we have a lot of stuff in the amendment to get through. This sounds like a big picture question on the ordinance, not necessarily germane to this.
Well, I think it is, because this would now become part of the ordinance. let's see what, maybe the staff
May
understands my question.
I was going to say, may I ask
You have a question?
Director Kubiak, Mr. Lashinsky to weigh in on this section?
Sure, we're happy to. Deputy in charge of sustainability has a question, real quick.
Thank you, Director Kubiak. Jackie Guile, Director, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability. Back on page 4, under number 2, and then small numeral 2, where it says the roof shall be a green living roof for those properties between Dock Street and Craig Street.
Wait, back up. What are you, page 4 of what?
Page 4 of your amendment.
I want to.
And then it's 2, and then small numeral 2, where it says the roof shall be a green living roof. Green roof. There's no option not to be a green roof here. It's a shall. First of all, and they may not want to have a green roof, but this is saying shall. So if that's your intent, then that's your intent. But then it goes on to number 3, where it says if it's used for dining, during dining, guardrails, etc.
Hey, hold on a sec. You're losing me because I want to stick to. I know, but I want to stick
But-
to the. If you're looking at the amendment,
What's that?
You've gone forward. He hasn't gotten to that section particularly.
Oh, I think he had.
I want to stick to page.
We're on
6.
page 8.
Yeah, I want to stick to page 6 or later because those
Oh,
how it
6 or
looks.
later. Well, I
in
just saw
the-
this as contradictory because you're saying
I know. Hold on. Though, I want to hear you, but I'm just saying. I want to, for the sake of maintaining order, I want to get focused on 6 or later because 6 is
Okay.
where it shows how the changes look in the ordinance is
Okay.
written.
so. I do have something back there too.
Well, wait, excuse me. Alderman Savage, I have to disagree with you. Ms. Guile is pointing out something that may impact not only what we're talking about right now, but going forward. Okay, so we can rectify,
I understand. I
well,
want
but
to hear it. Don't misunderstand me. I want to hear this. I'm just trying to stick to the right section in the legislation so we're not jumping all back and forth.
I'm sorry that we didn't call on her when we were in the previous section dealing with the green roofs, because her comments are pertinent. Okay, so we're gonna have to go back and address that. So instead of
I agree.
jump back,
I'm not arguing with you on that. I'm just trying to make sure we're all on the same page as far as where to look in the legislation. So if you have a suggestion, please just point it out as far as page 6 or later.
Okay, I have one on page
If you
8
can-
then.
Okay, so page 8.
Yeah, page 8. Section 21.56.115 rooftop dining area design standards under C.
Okay,
It
hold
goes
on
to-
on that. We're not at that section yet.
Okay, because you said 6 and later.
I know, but we're on section 105, page 8, section 21.56.105 or
Okay,
earlier. If you
I'll
have
wait.
something on an earlier section, such
But it's
as
something that Alderman Arnett already brought up.
09.
So,
I know, but this is a lot to get through. We
Okay.
need to. I
I'll
want to make
wait.
sure we can.
yeah.
So,
I'm very concerned because we're having an opportunity to fix things going forward, and we're not wanting to address them for whatever reason. We'll come
Not
back
saying
to
that.
it. Well, but we're gonna run out of time before we can get to them, and maybe, I hope that's not the intent. So, okay, go ahead. We're on page
Told you that is
8.
not the intent.
and point of order, I had asked for comment from the city staff to my generic question, and I'd really like to hear it. I'll be happy to go back to these other points, but
Look,
we
if
got our professionals here. I want to hear.
I'm not arguing that. Let's hear from the professionals. I'm just saying, are there any other comments from anybody in this on staff or on sections on page 6, please, sections 21.56.195, green roof standards? Anything else in that section before we move on to the next one?
I think Ms. Giles' comments were appropriate for green roofs.
But is it in this section 095?
I understand. I can read that
Okay.
too. Mr. Jakubiec, would you like to respond? Or Mr. Lashinsky?
Yes, Alderman Arnett focused on section 2156-105, rooftop accessory structure design standards, and he was asking really about how this fits into the context of the original ordinance. When the original ordinance is drafted, in drafting it, and the sponsors, I believe, were agnostic about what type of accessory structures would be there. We can't tell, we don't know, we can't project our own interest in this regard. It may be what's been called a mechanical penthouse, a way of clustering the HVAC units. It may be a shade structure over tables for people to sit outside, or a place for
Solar
tools to
panels.
be maintained that are used for irrigating green roofs. It doesn't matter from our perspective, as long as there is some protection involved. And so we placed some conditions on what those structures would look like to try to minimize the effect. This section that has been proposed by Alderman Savage improves upon that. It actually says, irrespective of the type of structure, that the cladding on the structure should match and complement the roof. That it should, in other words, it'll be easier to make sure it blends in nicely, that the guardrails should meet certain standards, and that visualization ought to be minimized, et cetera. So we like this. We add some context. It makes our job in advising the Planning Commission easier. And I have one concern, though, and Eric and I share this, and so I'll speak for both of us here, is it says no covered accessory structure in item E under prohibited features. No covered accessory structure shall include space for dining, bar use, or other habitable uses. Fair enough, but I think there's a distinction to be made between covered and enclosed. And certainly if you were allowing outdoor dining, and clearly that's what this ordinance amendment does, typically some type of shade structure over outdoor tables is just necessary. So we would suggest, if you keep item C, that you change covered to enclosed.
Ooh, question about that.
Alderman Arnett?
Yeah, so I think this is a good catch, and it raises an interesting question because it's relevant to the outdoor dining that's going on elsewhere. So no covered structure, that sounds to me like it would include a tent. It also could include a pergola, which is parcel coverage. And all of those things are really sticking up above the ridge line and are certainly potentially visible from various points of view. So when I read this, I liked the idea of no covered accessory structure, which would include tents. It could include umbrellas. It could include. So I guess was that your intent, that it would not be tents or umbrellas or pergolas as covering?
Well, I think those would be fine. My
But this
main,
excludes them.
yeah. I mean, I'm good with the change proposed by staff. I'm also open to any tweaks. Again, my primary purpose is just to prohibit habitable uses. So if it needs to be narrowed down just to that, I'm also fine with.
So it would read no enclosed accessory structure
Shall.
shall.
What are you thinking? What is your thinking about habitable? What do you mean by habitable? Do you mean livable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if
You
it's
don't, basically don't want any hotel rooms on the roof.
right, of course.
I'm getting at.
But if it's an enclosed space that allows for diners to be on the rooftop during the winter, these temporary structures. Again, they wouldn't project more than a certain number of feet above the roof line. But
Yeah, that gets tricky though, because then you'd potentially be running afoul of some of the other aesthetic requirements, right?
remember, these structures, there are protections in the code about where they're set within the roof frames, so they're not as visible. They're capped at a certain height. They can only take up a small percentage of the, or 25% of the entire rooftop service.
But I guess I would, yeah.
But
So am I
think-
hearing that there would be acceptance of changing the term covered to enclosed, no enclosed accessory structure?
Yes. And I think we might want to strike the for dining.
Yeah, that would, because again, to me, one of my angst is this is supposed to be generic legislation that allows redevelopment in this particular area. And it should not, in legislation, be presuming any particular kind of use, like dining, bars, other habitable spaces like hotel rooms. So when we get into this, I think we're switching from general rules about redevelopment in a particular area to codifying specific types of development. And that's where, to me, there needs to be an if somehow. If there's going to be green roof, if there's going to be rooftop dining, if there's going to be a bar or wedding ceremony, that's where I am having concerns. And I admit it's beyond just legislation. It's thinking about the legality of what we're doing.
And then the council might consider striking item C altogether and allowing the standards to stand on their own. And this will go through the approval process. You're not calling out any specific use. The use of a rooftop depends on the principal use, because these are accessory. They have to be accessory and secondary, incidental to the primary use. I think the city is protected without having this particular provision in place, provided the other standards are in place, like they can only project a certain number of vertical feet above the existing roof line. They have to be set back in, and the current proposal, I think, is 10 feet in for dining platforms. And then the visualization, minimization, and the cladding, and all those other types of structures.
Like, my one concern with that, though, again, is how do we ensure what? Because I want to include in this is a clear prohibition on allowing habitable rooms, hotel rooms on a roof. That is what the owner, one of the owners of one of the properties said they wanted to put on there, and I want to make sure 100% we're not going to allow that. So if that's somewhere else in the code, so be it, but I need to know where it is, if it is elsewhere in the code. If it's not, I want to make sure something gets in here. That's my first question.
Well, may I ask the sponsor, why not just change it to no inhabitable uses?
Sorry, we had a truck go by. What did you say?
I said, why wouldn't you accept the language change to simply say no inhabitable uses?
That's fine with me.
Well, that's fine too, but this section says rooftop accessory structures. It's clearly about what's accessory to the main use. If it's a hotel on one of those properties, hotel rooms on the top or on the roof is not accessory. Mm-hmm. It's part and parcel of the use, and it wouldn't be allowed. These are only accessory uses, and remember the section is the accessory structures, appurtenances, and related structures.
Yeah,
that's what this whole section is grappling with.
Okay.
So Director Jakubiak, does that mean you're comfortable with keeping C in and all of its verbiage except changing covered to enclosed?
Well, I'm comfortable with that. I mean, I'm just trying to respond to where the council's discussions are going. But
yeah, we all are.
Yeah, right. But back to that's the original point that I made.
So, do I need to make a motion to change the word covered to enclosed? Would that be for the sponsor, would that be a comfortable amendment?
Yes.
So I move that on page 8, under 2156010 rooftop accessory structures, C, that the word covered after no be changed to enclosed accessory structure.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. I clearly heard Mr. Jakubiec say that C was not needed. So I'm not sure why we're insisting upon keeping it in if it's not needed, if it's addressed elsewhere.
May I address that?
Yeah.
I think because Alderman Savage is concerned, if it is a hotel, that a restaurant not be developed on top of the hotel. I mean, certainly could have outdoor dining, but not a restaurant.
Right.
Am I right about that?
Yeah.
So this adds more protection and advances that goal of ensuring that anything that goes there is truly accessory and secondary, incidental. If there's a shade structure that allows people to sit out and have dining and the food service comes up through the elevator, that's one thing.
Yeah.
That's a lot different than having a restaurant on the top floor. So by keeping it in, you've prevented that possibility.
Okay. All right, there's, we're not voting on these separately, but I'll take a vote on the amendment for letter C, 21.56.105C, to change the term from covered to, what are we changing it to?
Enclosed.
Enclosed. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion from Environmental Matters.
So move.
Oh, you
Sheila.
second.
Move it. Sheila, will you second it?
Second it. I can't
those-
hear. I'm talking, yeah.
All those in
So,
favor, please say aye.
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 All right.
Okay, any other comments on that section, 105? All right, hearing none. The next one to go through is bottom of page 8, section 21.56.115, rooftop dining area design standards. And I know Alderman Arnett's going to have a comment on this one, but let me just say, the intent here is not to supersede the other rooftop dining legislation or requirements. This is just to have further clarity, unique to the historic district in this part of the part of Dock Street that'd be impacted.
Right.
And so, and Alderman Shanley, you had one other technical correction somewhere, didn't you?
Yes, sir. On section 21.56.115, subsection B, height and enclosure, I caught a technical issue. The sentence as written says guardrails and parapets serving dining areas may extend 42 inches above the roof surface. I am assuming the intention was to write guardrails and parapets serving dining areas may not extend 42 inches above the roof surface. Is that a correct assumption on my part?
I believe so.
I think this is permissive. It may extend up to 42 inches, but no higher. I guess that's what you're saying.
Okay.
So saying may not extend would be
May-
the
may-
correct language.
May not exceed 42 inches, perhaps.
Or
May not exceed.
may not
Yeah.
exceed. Okay, so that would be
Is that
better
a
word
mode
choice.
change?
Yes, so I would like to change it as written to guardrails and parapets serving dining areas may not exceed 42 inches above the roof surface.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion from Environmental Matters.
So move.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. So the other,
Mr. Chair, you had brought up the rooftop here and the rooftop in the rest of the code. And so my question and concern is, if I'm someone thinking about developing in Annapolis and I'm thinking about rooftop and I go to the city code and I search on rooftop, I'm now going to find rooftop dining defined in two different places. And I'm presuming that the rooftop dining standards in 2164-540 are generic, and these are in a specific area, namely the Dock Street area, are in addition and specific to any kind of rooftop dining that should be proposed on the Dock Street. I guess I'm
Is
really
that a
asking
question
staff.
for Mr. Jakubiec?
I think that's how we would consider them to be, and it might be worthwhile adding a statement that says that it might be under applicability. The section applies to all rooftop dining areas at properties on Dock Street between Craig Street and easternmost terminus of Dock Street, and shall be in addition to those standards set forth in 2164-540.
I think that could avoid confusion in the
Yeah.
future, so I would make the motion to add shall be in addition to 2164-540 subsection A, subsection 2, subsection D.
Is there a second? I'll second that for the sake of the committee. Further discussion?
I apologize, Madam Chair. I had seconded it, but I had my mic off, so I apologize
Okay.
for
Thank
that
you.
not going through.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there a motion from Environmental Matters?
So moved from Environmental Matters.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Are we going to go back to Jackie's question?
Yeah. The other thing, so just to point out,
That's in
is,
addition.
well, are there any other questions on this section? It also states in D that certificate of approval must include findings that the dining installation preserves sight lines and historic roof lines.
Yeah.
And then some other further setback requirements in C.
I'm lost.
Any
Where
other-
are we now?
The same section, just
Okay.
going over C and D, page 9, 8 and 9. Any other questions on that? Comments? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
This is a question for
Alderman Shannon.
staff. Do we have like formal definition of preserved sightlines, or is that up to the discretion of Planning Commission, HPC, and Board of Appeals?
Yes, it is a discretionary standard.
Thank you.
So moving on, the next change would be page 10, which I believe is what the deputy city manager was section you had a comment on. So this is a substitute text for, so if you look on page 9, this is number 2 that deals with this is the original legislation proposes, this is where the proposal to extend 10 feet beyond the applicable allowed height limit, as well as the 5-foot overrun for elevator shaft. I'm proposing a rewrite which changes that a bit. As you'll see on page 10. What it basically does is states that it reduces that 10 to 7. However, it does allow up to 10 if they demonstrate. You'll see the 1, 2, and 3 in parentheses. If they do demonstrate that the extra height is necessary and minimal, that the visual impacts are reduced through greater setbacks, and 3, that all other overlay standards such as green roofs, historic requirements are satisfied. So it still allows up to 10, but kind of sets the new baseline at 7. It's just a minor kind of reduction. And that applies to mechanical penthouses. And and states in there that those penthouses shall have a green living roof. I think that's what the deputy city manager was referring to. And then has a couple other requirements for those properties, which states that in B, talking about the aggregate footprint. And then in, I think we need to fix the lettering. On page 11, you'll see E and F should be C and D. But for the sake of discussion, E refers to setback and F refers to certificate of approval from HPC. I'm sure there are questions on this section.
I do, Mr. Chair.
Alderman, actually, I'd like to ask Director Jakubiec to respond to the three items that have to be demonstrated in order. Well, the limitation of 7 feet unless they can meet those three areas.
Well, first, the way the ordinance was drafted originally, this section dealt with all types of accessory dwellings, or I'm sorry, accessory structures, not just mechanical penthouses. And it encompassed elevators and other structures. So it was all encompassing, and it set a height limit. So all these standards would apply irrespective of the type of accessory structure. And I think we need to grapple with that because minimizing the visual effect of all those types of structures is important. And I won't offer a recommendation just yet, but that's one issue. The other is that Roman numeral 2 here implies that a green roof would be placed on top of the mechanical penthouse, which effectively extends the height, the visual height of the mechanical penthouse some distance because there's going to be planting. Currently, the green roof standards apply just to the roof proper, not to the structures on top of it. And it may be that they're allowed, but not required to be addressed. So I would actually suggest the council reconsider Roman numeral 2. But the last thing on the issue of height, we think 10 feet provides more flexibility for good design. It doesn't, none of the standards in a code are given. If something says you can have up to 10 feet, that doesn't mean 10 foot is guaranteed. The Planning Commission or the Board of Appeals or HPC still has the discretion to have it less than 10 feet if these other criteria are not met. And for that reason, we're comfortable with keeping it at 10 feet. And we also would suggest dealing with the issue of the elevator in this language. We wanted to ensure that if elevator access were provided, that the proper design of the elevator could fit. And that typically involves an additional 5 feet for an override if the elevator actually goes up to the rooftop. And that's why the current language adds an additional 5 feet if an elevator is installed. So for those reasons, we would ask the council to consider going back to a language that encompasses all the types of accessory structures and to allow 10 feet to be the maximum allowed with an additional 5 feet should an elevator be installed, be approved to be installed.
So, Mr. Jakubiec, you're saying going back to page 9, what is currently in red is the original language that you would prefer to be kept. Number 2, B2. with little ABC? Is that what I'm?
Yes, in essence, yes.
Okay, Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a few questions about this. I have no clear idea of where 10 and additional 5 come from, and certainly no idea where 7 feet comes from. I did ask some questions specific to elevators, and there's no way you could get an elevator in 7 feet. I specifically asked, well, what if it was a hydraulic elevator that's pushed up from below, and would that be able to be accommodated in 7 feet? And the answer was no. And I only got 2 answers, so I'm certainly not exhaustive. But I also was told that hydraulic elevators don't tend to be used anymore. And in this location, that hydraulic elevator would have to go below ground. And we know from recent experience on City Dock, going 1 foot below ground, not very viable. And so the hydraulic elevator is probably not a likely possibility. So I don't think 7 feet would make sense, at least as it has to do with elevators. Not even clear to me that 7 feet would make sense in terms of stairwells. It might make sense in terms of HVAC, but I think what I just heard the director say is the staff is recommending the original language, limiting it to no more than 10 feet with the ability, with justification, to go higher than that by as much as 5 feet. Now that's 15 feet above the ridge height. And I think that's going to be very hard to not be visible. Certainly coming down Main Street, 15 feet above the ridge height would be pretty visible. And even standing on the dock street before the building, unless these structures are pushed to the rear of the building, and there's nothing here that requires that, I think it could even be very visible just standing in front of the building back to maybe 100 feet or something like that. So I think that there's some considerations. I asked questions early on about cultural landscape study, which is a study that really talks about the view shed. And this is clearly something that would be imposing itself into the historical view shed. So I do have some concerns on both these sets of numbers and what they're allowing, but even more concerns trying to figure out where they're coming from. Where did 7 feet come from?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of different questions. I mean, are you asking about the 7 feet or the 10 feet? Because I think we need justification on both of them. But
I agree.
The one of the first pertinent question would be if the committees think that they may want to explore going down to 7. If not, they could just stick with the 10 original. But I guess to start off, does staff have any background you can provide on the 10 feet and the 5 feet?
We have 2 architects in our office, as it turns out, and consulted with one. She confirmed your analysis of the hydraulic elevators and their usefulness now and in this application. But certainly 10 foot is necessary for the elevator to function above the floor of the roof. And 5 foot is the typical override. It's just generally understood that's what you need to make the elevator work. 10 foot is also a ceiling height that allows for the various things that go into making a space work, like sprinklers, code requirements for HVAC, for ceiling fan, for these other elements that make any type of structure that people sit under functional. So that's why it's 10. In practice, it may be 9 as a result of applying the standards. But remember, you may not remember, but we did a cross-section analysis of a building, theoretical, on that block. And you have to move all the way out to Eagle Alley before you could see that 15-foot, just because of the way the space is. And at that point, you only see the kind of a small part of it. So, assuming that you comply with the standards, where you set back these accessory structures, you don't place them right on the roof line or right next to the cornice. Of course, they're set back. So 7 feet may actually work out well for a mechanical room, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's necessary a clearance that's necessary to work on the appliances that are housed there. We don't know. But if we see a proposal and they're showing 10 feet and there's no justification based on the way it's designed for it to be 10 foot, our natural inclination would be say, no, the max is 10, but we're only allowing 7 or 6, wherever the case may be, because of what you're actually proposing there. This is intended to allow for the flexibility to be applied and getting the best design possible.
So thank you for that answer, and it actually enriches. I hadn't thought about things like fire and other things. I guess my personal inclination is to, in this regard, stick with the original legislation. And as you pointed out, that sets a maximum. It gives the flexibility in case there's some justification of going over, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily get the maximum. Any project that would come would have to go before the planning staff and also HPC. And we know that HPC is very sensitive to structures exceeding building heights. So I think what we're doing is setting the general parameters of what are maximums, what are flexibilities, but that doesn't mean that's what you get. And by the way, in terms of the view from the front of the building, I understand that, but that's not going to be the only view. There's going to be quite a view of this coming down Main Street, and that's one of our really important views in the city. It's not only coming down Main Street, it's also from the water looking up Main Street. So I'm sure HPC and planning staff are going to be very thorough in their analysis of any particular application about those particular impacts of view shed all the way around the
I'm gonna just, if I could respond as the sponsor of this. Well, I'm curious what the rest of the committee, if the rest of the committees feel that it should go back to the original 10/5 feet, because that could be. So I guess that's one question, but the other question would be some of the things that I would propose to still carry over from the amendment would be some of the things in parentheses, the 1, 2, and 3, to state, to still put something in there as far as if they get, because the director did say it's still even as written up to 10, but to still require some additional oversight, so to speak, or demonstration that'd be required in those, as far as providing justification to staff that extra height is needed, that the visual impacts are reduced, and that the historic district requirements are satisfied, that kind of thing. I would still like to see those included. So
Alderman Schnellmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the 1, 2, and 3 that you have included. I believe that it gives some extra discretion towards approving bodies on redevelopment on this for folks' records. That is, extra height is necessary and minimal, 1. 2 is visual impacts are reduced through greater setbacks, appropriate screening material or colors. And number 3, all overlay standards, including green roofs, coverage limits, maintenance, and historic district requirements are satisfied. I think having those separate from what we were previously discussing still makes a whole lot of sense. So I don't know how you want to play that with amending your amendment, but I do
Well,
think your instinct to keep those in is worthwhile.
I would ask Mr. Jakubiec to respond. How comfortable are you with those items being included? Or do you feel they are already part of your purview in making the approvals?
I like that they're in. I think it puts the onus on the applicant to clearly need the 10 feet and demonstrate it. And it allows the decision makers to make a judgment based on and balance competing interest, but really make a judgment. Is that 10 foot necessary? Why can't it be 8? Because if it's 7, it means this corner of the building is never seen. Well, and that's good. So I'm pleased with the way this may be shaping out, having the standards in place while establishing the flexibility that Alderman Shannemeyer referred to.
So Alderman Shannemeyer, where would it go, going back to the original language in red on pages 9 and 10? Trying to get us to a motion here.
That is a wonderful question, Madam Chair, and as soon as I figure that out, I will get back to you.
Maybe a new lowercase d.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Ms. Reuter.
1D or 2D?
Under B, 2D is what you're saying? On page 9,
Yeah, under it, I think it would be under 2 and then make a new, a new letter D after.
B2D is what you're saying?
That's correct, I believe. Yeah, Ms. Reuter, does that make sense?
And what would the wording be?
Basically, it would say the applicant must demonstrate that, and then it would list the 1, 2, and 3 that Alderman Shannemeyer read out. So the 1, 2, and 3 from my amendment. So, Madam Chair, if I may, so I believe the motion would be to unstrike numbers 2 and 3, first of all, right? And then in the original legislation, and then add in a new 2D, which would read, the applicant must demonstrate that.
Must demonstrate what?
It would read, in order to achieve the 10
Alderman,
foot.
may I stop you for a moment?
Yes, yeah.
Let's go back to what we're keeping. If we're looking on page 9, and we're gonna unstrike what is in red, and we're going to add from page 10, and this is where we really miss the line numbers. I don't know how we got to a point where there's no line numbers, but we're gonna add what's under 2 little a, little 1. We're gonna add 1, 2, 3 in parentheses.
No, I don't think so.
Alderman Shannemeyer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What if we just add those 3 things after, on page 11, after line 21? So we have the A, B's, and C's from lines 13 through line 21. What if we just add extra height is necessary and minimal, visual impacts are reduced through greater setbacks, appropriate screenings, materials, or colors. All other overlay standards, including green roofs, coverage limits, maintenance, and historic districts requirements are satisfied. Why don't we add those 3 underneath
subsection lowercase c as a lowercase d, lowercase e, lowercase f.
Yeah.
Would that probably be the easiest, simplest, and most efficient way to do it?
It may be, but you lost me. I'm sorry. I'm
So
looking on my page 11 doesn't seem to have.
If
Say
you-
it again, please.
So if you look at page 11 on the original legislation 01425 first reader, you will see starting on line 13, page 11 on 01425 as written, starting from line 13 going all the way down to line 21, you'll see lowercase a, roof is green, etc. Lowercase b, aggregate footprint of any such structures, etc. Lowercase c, any such structure shall be positioned on the roof to minimize, etc. So what I think may be the simplest way to incorporate what we were just discussing is after that lowercase c, add lowercase d from the Savage Amendment. The extra height is necessary and minimal. Lowercase e, visual impacts are reduced through greater setbacks, appropriate screening materials or colors, and lowercase f, all other overlay standards, including green roofs, coverage limits, maintenance, and historic district requirements are satisfied.
And
So
this
we're not
is now
striking
two-
anything. We're just adding those three things under section 2 on page 11
with a new D, sub D.
with a new sub D.
and F.
The applicant must demonstrate that, and then the 1, 2, and 3 from the Savage. I would second that.
I think that gets what we were just discussing still into, with those additional standards still into the legislation. We don't have to deal with weird crossing and referencing, etc. We can just chop it in there.
I'm good with that. Miss Reuter, does that?
May I
Makes sense.
clarification?
Yes.
So I was following in the amendment. So on page 10 in the amendment, Ms. Reuter, please follow along and help me to see where that goes. We are going to eliminate all of what's in blue on pages 10 and 11. Is that correct?
Not yet.
And then we're going to add 1, 2, and 3 that Alderman Shanamai just highlighted.
I know.
Someplace else in the original document,
Yeah, she's right.
in the original first draft. Page, I'm sorry, I lost the page that you mentioned, Alderman Shanamai.
Yes,
So-
Madam Chair, I actually believe what you just said is correct.
So too.
So we would be deleting everything from the Savage Amendment in blue, or Savage Amendment 5 in blue on page 10 and the top of page 11 before Title 21 Planning and Zoning. And what we would do instead is add on 01425 under after subsection C, lowercase c, we would add extra height is necessary and minimal. Visual impacts are reduced through greater setbacks, appropriate screening materials or colors, and then all other overlay standards, including green roofs, coverage limits, maintenance, and historic districts requirements are satisfied.
Okay, so that is your motion, and I believe it was seconded by
I
Alderman.
seconded it, yes.
Okay, Ms. Jackson, do you have that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
So-
ma'am.
thank you, ma'am. I will entertain a motion to support that amendment from Alderman Chandelmeyer.
Yeah,
We
I
already
think
have a
it's-
motion. I'm just calling the question. I'm sorry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Is
All
the
right.
motion from Environmental Matters?
Same motion from Environmental Matters.
second,
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Now this still
Okay.
leaves,
I do have one other question.
We have one
So-
more amendment, Alderman Savage, number 6.
Yeah, you're right.
No, but-
But I have a question. I still have a question for staff about one of the things I was adding was in the blue on page 11, the F, which we just we were it was just stricken. But in any case, it says certificate of approval when historic district findings are required. Is that already required anyway? Because it's all in the
Yes, it would be.
All right. So moving on, Madam Chair, the last part of this amendment is on the bottom of page 11 and 12. And these are the definitions for accessory structure: rooftop, elevator override, green roof, mechanical penthouse, and rooftop dining area. So are there any questions, concerns from staff or the committee on these definitions?
Well, let me ask, Amendment 6 is about 15 pages. So you're going straight to page 11, you said?
No, we're not on
No.
we're not on amendment 6. We're on amendment
We're
5
still
still.
on 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we had dispatched with 5. We have not?
No.
Nope.
Oh, okay. You're right. We only, okay.
So the bottom of page 11 and top of 12 on amendment 5 are the actual definitions that still need to get added. Are there any comments from staff on these? I think I incorporated the changes you had previously.
No comments.
No concerns?
Then for rules, I would make a motion that we recommend approval of the additional terms as in the Savage Amendment number 5. Accessory dwelling, elevator override, green roof, mechanical penthouse, and rooftop.
So your motion is to give a favorable recommendation to Amendment 5 as amended by the Rules Committee.
As pertaining to inserting terms.
Right now, I think you need a motion for the entire amendment as
Well-
changed.
We just made some changes to that
And
amendment.
that would include.
That would include the definitions
Okay.
unless there's a motion to
All right.
remove them.
Okay,
Yes.
Right. Okay.
so that's,
Oh, could I get a second? I thought we already voted on it, but can we get a second on Amendment 5 as amended by the Rules Committee?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
All right.
Okay,
Environmental
now
matters?
we're on to 6, correct?
So-
Wait, hold on, Madam
Yeah.
Chair.
John,
Is there a motion from environmental matters?
yes, move
Oh,
that
sorry.
we recommend favorably on Amendment 5 with the changes made
In the
in the
joint committee.
Environmental Matters
Yeah.
Committee.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. All right. So Amendment 6. Similarly, I would like to start on page, let's see, page 8 is where you can see the changes as they would appear in the legislation. But actually, sorry, before we do that, if you could, go back to page 1. And there's a bit of an amendment summary just to give an overview. These are the transit-oriented development amendments. I think I stated last meeting as far as my rationale. Just in a quick summary, I've certainly been won over on the importance of adding density and housing in the city, but I am still very adamant about ensuring that we mitigate that growth with addressing the infrastructure impacts that we often hear about from our constituents, as far as especially as it pertains to traffic and road impacts. And so in an effort to try to get some more synergy with the comprehensive plan, I'm trying to get those concerns of mine and my constituents addressed in this. I know there's a lot in here. I think it's unfortunate, it's just part of the unfortunate situation we're in where it's the end of the term. We have a lot we want to try to get through. Normally, I think we would be able to spend time to have this go back to the planning commission, et cetera, but we simply don't have that time. So I know this may not be perfect. And I think even the director said before, or I think the department may have said before, don't let, perfect be the enemy of the good. And I do agree. And I also think that I would ask for the same treatment on this amendment. I would like to get some structure set up for transit-oriented development, and absolutely happy to work on tweaking this if it needs to get further tweaked with a new term, but it would give, I think, my constituents a lot of comfort if we could get a nice framework set up to start off with. To that end, just to read this summary on page 1, it does add, this amendment would add a new purpose, similar in the same section, I think, that Alderman Arnett, and we can get into that he tweaked. The second thing is it would lower the baseline for the density increase. And the rationale behind lowering the baseline density increase is to basically then raise the ceiling even higher to create an incentive for transit-oriented development. And so, again, the baseline gets lowered, but the high end actually gets raised even more than what was proposed to act as an incentive. The idea being if they can add more density, they can make more money on it and hopefully contribute more towards transit. The third thing is allowing parking reductions as long as there's a transit demand management plan. Because, again, I think we've heard even from Alderman Chandemeyer quite a bit. Got us started on this as far as looking to reduce parking requirements. And I think if we have transit, we don't need quite as much parking. So that opens up, I think, a lot more options for us. The fourth thing would be requiring community benefit agreements. And this is a mechanism, certainly get into more detail about, but it's something I've learned about from Portland, something they include in their transit-oriented development projects. Fifth item there is establishing tax incremental financing districts. This actually I've learned we did this on Park Place to help pay for the garage, and what I'm seeking to do is just create some framework for that in the code, because I don't believe we have any kind of framework currently governing those kind of mechanisms. And then the last thing is just adding some definition. So that's the general purpose, and with that, I'm going to jump up to page 8. 8 and 9. 9 has the first item. So, unless I hear otherwise from Madam Chair, the first change proposed in this amendment, again, top of page 9, is a new addition to speak more towards the purpose of planned developments. It would add an item that would say,
Alderman, may I
Madam Chair.
interrupt you? I'm looking at the amendment, and it seems you have significant changes starting on page 2 of the amendment, page 7 of the legislation. Am I reading the wrong document, or are you skipping over what's it? Conditional density bonus, residential planning development, mixed plan development.
I'm just skipping to the section that details how the changes look in the ordinance.
Starting on page 8.
Starting on page 8. You should.
I see changes on every page and to the ordinance that start with page 2, really. So I'm not clear on why we're skipping all of those changes. And I see page 8 where you have your text in red.
Yeah.
I want to address the other changes that are proposed.
I'm just going through it like we did with the last amendment, through how it would look in the ordinance itself, so people can understand and see the full context.
So if
In
I
the
might,
legislation.
Madam Chair,
I think people will understand if they see the changes. I'm not clear on why we don't want to make that clear. Alderman Arnett?
so page 8 has already been changed with our net amendment 4. So I think you can ignore this page 8, and the first change from Savage Amendment 6 shows up on page 9, which is the new purpose number 7, which is related to improving transportation.
I'm on page 10,
Ooh,
which has
you're way
the-
ahead of us. Okay, but we have an amendment on page 9 at the top,
I see that.
which I
Okay.
would like to make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation to adding this item 7 that is showing here on page 9 of this legislation. But I would then like to hear staff comment if it's seconded.
Well, the whole amendment, I'd like to try to do what we did for the last amendment and just we go through each section of proposed changes and see if staff or the committee have comments, and the actual motions would be changes to the amendment.
Okay.
Well, I think there's been a proposal to deal with the first one, and I would rather take them one at a time, like we did with the last one, because we voted on them individually. And then we voted on them as a whole. So on page 9, there was a motion made, though it wasn't seconded.
Second.
With that,
Okay, so open for discussion on page 9.
we don't need a motion unless you're going to change what's in the amendment. So let's just first have a discussion about,
You're right.
hear from staff as far as, do you have any concerns, thoughts on
Alderman,
this number 7?
I'm
And
sorry.
then-
I would prefer, as we did in the past, to address them and take a position on each one.
But
and
that
then
is
we
what I'm
will-
trying to do. This is exactly what I'm trying to do. Is what we did last time. I go over what's in the amendment, and then we hear from staff and the committee, and then there's a motion if there needs to be a motion. But first, we need to hear from staff and the committee about the particular change.
Alderman, we will have a motion, and then it will be open for discussion.
Madam Chair, that is not what we did with the last amendment.
Mr. Chair,
trying
when
to
you
do-
get to environmental matters, please feel free to do it that way.
I'm just
Okay.
saying that is not what we did with the
Mr.
last amendment that we
Okay.
just went through. I'm trying to do the same thing, which you just said you want us to do is the same thing. That is what I'm trying to do here. So as I
there is-
did before, I read through all the changes one by one, and we heard from staff. I would like to hear from staff before any kind of motion is made.
Alderman, there is a motion on the floor to give a favorable recommendation, and it has been seconded.
Why are you making a motion before we even
Alderman,
heard from
excuse me,
staff?
you do not have the floor. I'm sorry. Okay, the motion is to give a favorable recommendation. It's been moved and seconded. Now, I am opening the floor for the
Yes,
Rules
ma'am.
Committee for discussion.
Okay. Point of information that is procedurally incorrect.
Well, that's fine. Alderman Schnellmeyer?
Withdraw the motion.
There's. Why are we?
So I guess now that the motion's on the floor and we're in discussion stage, let's hear from staff.
Sorry to disappoint. We have
Tell us
really
your
nothing to add. We think this is wonderful. This is a great statement, and it's in spirit with the way the ordinance is drafted now. Number 7, that is. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Jakubiec. Is there further discussion? Alderman Schnellmeyer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got a quick question during the tax incremental financing and affordable housing conditions section. So currently, percentage of below market housing provided.
Can
Or
we,
not at that.
we have let's take a vote on the previous one before we move on to the next one.
Okay.
All in favor of the First Amendment on page 9, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now, going on
Sorry.
to page 10.
But
Alderman
not-
Chandler,
not- We're not on page 10 yet.
you
page
are
9.
not, but our committee is.
But don't you want to know there's a proposed change on page 9 in blue that still needs to get discussed. But if you want to go to 10 and jump over that,
Well, Alderman Schnellmeyer was speaking to what was on page 10. We can come back to page 9.
I was actually on page 3.
Really? Oh my God. me a break.
Jiminy
I'm
Cricket.
taking it in order.
Yeah. All right. Fine. Page.
I think it's easier to work with, for me at least, showing the changes to the legislation than that really starts on page 9. But I certainly will honor the alderman's wish to go back to page 3.
All right.
what page do you want now?
I'm just happy to be here.
Gentlemen, the sooner we get this done, the sooner we'll be through.
We're almost out of time.
All right. So I guess if I can move on to page. The one questions that I have around here, I think all the issues around developer contributions and developer contributions in towards transit funding and tax incremental financing, I think those are all very good steps. Plan developments tend to be done all at once. That does cause a bit of disruption. So I think these take a lot of great steps towards administering it. I guess the two questions that I have both tend to be around under the tax incremental financing portions, which there is one on page 11 and another on page 3. We'll go to page 11 because that's where because that's, I guess, in the general
Could be the
direction that we're
same.
heading.
Page 3 is the same.
Yeah, page 3.
Page 11.
Affordable housing conditions. The percentage below market rate housing provided on the property shall be at least 25% of the total units. Is that to qualify for tax incremental financing, or is that intended to be for all planned developments by your intention for this amendment?
So I want to provide more explanation, and that's why I'm trying to go in order of the changes. So because I want to help people understand the amendment like we did the last one, and so people understand why things are where they are. You look at the legislation, let's see. There are two changes proposed to the density increases, right, on page 9 and page 10. Page 9 increases the density. So the underlying legislation proposes to increase the maximum number of dwelling units for residential plan developments up from, I believe, the current 100% up to 150%. Right? Looking at staff. All right. So I'm proposing to change that to 125%, which is reducing that increase. Right?
Following
Everybody's
along.
with me?
I am following
And
along.
top of page 10, the other density change.
Wait, well, you were on page, I'm trying to make this, you were on page 9 of the original legislation.
No, page 9 of the amendment.
Oh,
What page is that on?
We are on page 9,
What page is
21.2.4.050, bulk and density standards. B, new one, I guess
So
it
I'm-
is.
right, sorry.
Again, with this amendment, I'm trying to reduce the increase for a new baseline. And so you'll see I'm proposing to strike maximum allowable density standards and just keeping it named density standards. Because I want to set the new baseline, the new density standards, to be the reduced increases. which would be the 125% instead of the 150. And then on page 10, the other change that staff proposes in the ordinance is basically reducing, you see that 850? That is an effort, and staff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that is an effort to allow for more density in special mixed plan development projects. What I'm proposing to do is, and staff explained to me that I believe essentially doubles the, I think you said double the amount of density currently allowed in special mixed use, right? And so what I'm trying to do by increasing it to 1,400 is to basically half that for the baseline. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So to that point, does staff have any comments on those particular changes for the baseline? And it's connected to Alderman Schandelmeyer's point as far as with the next section in C is where I offer the conditional, which is page 10, has conditional density bonus tied to high value transit improvements. Those conditional density bonuses I'm making even higher because I want those to be the incentives. But so the first question has to do with the baseline on page 9.
Okay. So that is to qualify for density standards, not to qualify for a planned development.
The current draft increases the allowable density within two types of planned developments. Within the residential plan development, it can increase to 125% of the allowable density, which means, for instance, in a 150, excuse me. So in a R1 zone, you're capped at 6 units per acre. With the way the amendment is drafted, you'll go to the potential for 9 units per acre. Alderman Savage is suggesting essentially 7.5 units per acre, because that's what the math works out to. So if it's 125% increase to 6, that leads to 7.5 units per acre. So for the special mixed use districts, which currently in the proposed ordinance are allowed to bump up to a higher density if they meet certain location criteria. For instance, they're specifically located with frontage on some of these major roadways and show up as express mixed use planned areas within the comprehensive plan. So we've got a linkage between the comp plan and the added density. If they match up with a comp plan, a developer can propose higher density. And that what this amendment does, though, is to simply say, irrespective of where a planned mixed-use development is allowed, its density can go a little higher than what current code allows, but substantially lower than what Jakubiak and Lashinsky are suggesting. So, for instance, a special mixed plan development under the current draft could go to 50 units per acre. Actually, the math works out to 51, but it's 50 units per acre. It's currently 25 units per acre. That's what things are now. Alderman Savage would have the number set at 31 units per acre. Let's go to the math real quick. So again, we would suggest if these special mixed-use areas meet our criteria and are located in areas embraced by the comprehensive plan, we would give more flexibility to the market to deliver housing in those areas. So we would suggest that essentially a doubling of allowable density up to 50%. And this particular amendment, Amendment 6, is suggesting that that number be capped at essentially 31 units per acre. So that's the new baseline. And what Alderman Savage will tell you is that the proposal is that if these projects qualify as being supportive of or consistent with high-value transit improvements and meet these other community benefit and tax incremental financing requirements, the density can go up even higher, actually higher than what our initial recommendation was.
So that is you get more if you provide that 25% number. It's not you must always do the 25%. It's a bonus
That's right.
to provide more affordable housing.
Yeah, if they want the extra density bonus beyond what even staff is proposing, then yeah, if they want that, then they would have to do a number of things. One would be 25% affordable housing. The other stuff would be a TIF would have to be placed on the property, and that's more of a city mechanism. And then they would have to come to a signed community benefit agreement with staff that committing to, it could be basically whatever we negotiate.
Okay. That is the right way to do it.
Definitely.
Where I was coming from is my concern is sometimes if you come in, some people come in well-intentioned, we must increase the amount of affordable housing they must build, but then it's too high for them to turn a profit, so nothing gets built, and a higher percentage of zero is still zero. So, but by providing these extra bonuses like you've done, I think you've written a piece of legislation that will really encourage additional construction and get us there. So
I
thank you for
hope so.
answering that.
Yeah, and thank you for allowing me to provide that in context.
But,
And
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
did we jump over on page 10, 3, this dividing the development area by 1,400 as opposed to 850, which seems to me would decrease the number of units by making that number go from 850 to 1,400. Seems like the number of developable units would decline.
maybe staff can help you explain this one.
For every 850 square feet of space, you can do one dwelling unit. And that's what we're suggesting.
That's what you're suggesting with 850.
But it's either, so we're originally suggesting 850, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so and what you were suggesting is 1,400, that it'd be capped. So you need a lot more land area to get another
Right.
unit.
Okay,
That's
I
how it
just
works.
want to make sure I was
Yeah.
clear. So that would, this
A lower
amendment
density.
would reduce the number of units on a particular part.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
And yeah, and again, that's with the idea of saving that 850 to be the incentive for those who developments that meet the other requirements. I'm certainly open to changing that 1,400. I think you alluded to in your written comments to me that you may want to see that changed. I'm happy to, but if that's the wrong way to accomplish my goal with this.
Well, you haven't asked what we thought about this so much, but I'm happy
As a big
to
picture,
help the
yeah.
council understand it and then spend as much time as possible.
Right.
Because we see the value of where you're headed, but we do think the way the ordinance is, amendment is drafted now needs some improvement. And I know the perfect and good comparison is relevant. I think we have something that is maybe closer to perfect, but still not ideal. And I know, and we shared it with you the other day, and I since have refined that and brought copies with me. I wanted to get to the essence of this. So this is a very complicated set of standards, and it does, as a matter of fact, add cost to delivering housing, which is fundamentally the issue of affordability. I mean, so, and it gets complicated. We don't have all the answers yet, but if this set gets, I'm afraid that this has not been vetted with people in the building industry that know the nuts and bolts of delivering affordable housing. And if it were, based on what we know and our experience actually meeting with developers as they're considering properties in the city, my concern is the reaction would be, what's the point of making the investment up front? That's why the way we've drafted it is to be more embracing of the comprehensive plan's focus on housing and supply and production of housing with the protections in terms of location and these other standards. And I can go through some details and sort of terminology, but I think big picture, what we've asked for is willingness on the part of the council to embrace Alderman Savage's concepts in terms of a framework for moving forward, rather than the nuts and bolts, the details. And which we're trying to be diplomatic and supportive of Alderman Savage, because we really care about the direction you're headed. We're supported, and the Planning Commission does too, and it couldn't grapple with these complexities in its hearing as well. But we're here to support the council either way you want to go, but it's complicated.
Well, may I address the Rules Committee?
Yes.
We are coming up on a timeline here. You have heard from staff about the complexities, especially of this amendment. I can speak from personal experience trying to bring in affordable housing to the city and the obstacles that were in the way of the success. And so further obstacles are a concern to me. You know, the whole discussion about tying transit to affordable housing. And we all agree that transit is extremely important. But I really believe we're putting the cart before the horse. And so I would propose that we consider not addressing Amendment 6 and that we pass this on to the full council with the amendments that we have addressed and give Alderman Savage an opportunity to bring this back to a new council who will have, that he can embrace with his vision. Not that it's not a bad vision, but it's one that we may not be able to accomplish or codify right now as we're about to leave this council. So that's what I propose for the Rules Committee. I'd be interested in what my colleagues have to say. Alderman Arnett, Alderman Schnellmeyer. Alderman Arnett, your hand went up first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I like the first two changes we've gone through so far, but I have to, and I like the sense of this very complicated remainder, but I first of all, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it, but I take to heart what the staff said. In fact, I was kind of chilled hearing that this may actually discourage development. And I certainly don't want to do anything to do that. So I guess my question to the amendment sponsor is this something, since you will be back, that we can pick up again in the next term? There's going to be further amendments to the zoning code to implement the comprehensive plan. And I think that there's going to need more time. And I'm afraid that it would delay passage of the overall ordinance if we get bogged down in the details of this. So I do like the first two changes, but I'm sympathetic to the chair's recommendation that we not consider amendment 6.
Alderman Schnellmeyer.
There are a lot of moving parts to this, but I believe this was one of your essentials to support the comprehensive plan as a whole you had mentioned. What I might recommend is we take no action on 6, and the sponsor can kind of try to work out maybe something a little more streamlined before final voting on the legislation as a whole. Because I do know there's a lot of good in this, and there's a lot of important things to Alderman Savage as part of Amendment 6. And I do think he's come up with some very creative ways to find funding for not just our transportation sector, but also to encourage some creative types of developments that we see in the city. So I don't want to vote this down. I understand why we may want to see
little bit more work on it on our end. So what my recommendation would be is us take no action for now on Amendment 6, and Alderman Savage can work with planning and zoning a little bit more to come up with something a little more streamlined.
Thank you, Alderman Schnellmeyer. I think that was exactly my recommendation to the committee. And I will entertain a motion to take no action from the Rules Committee on Amendment 6.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I will entertain a motion now to give a favorable or not favorable recommendation to 01425 as amended by the Rules Committee.
Did you say unfavorable?
I said favorable, and then I said or unfavorable, whatever is your pleasure. I'm sure it's
Time
favorable.
out.
What was the motion?
Yes. We have something from staff.
And I'm
Thank you.
sorry, and I do apologize to Ms. Guile because I wanted to go back to her comments and we didn't. But is it Mr. Jakubiec that wants to comment?
Thank you. Just very briefly, before you recommend presumably approval or favorable recommendation for the ordinance in its entirety, I wanted to mention that the foundational purpose of this set of amendments is to mitigate some obstacles that have slowed down, prevented redevelopment of obsolete properties or underutilized or outmoded properties. That comes right from the comprehensive plan. It's expressly documented in the plan with a goal and a direction statement. This amendment encompasses various subject areas within the city's growth and development framework. The focus on the city dock area and Dock Street has been the subject of discussion about whether it's spot zoning. It is clearly not spot zoning. In fact, it's a valid use of the zoning ordinance to target specific parts of a jurisdiction if there's a clear public purpose. Sections within a zoning classification can be addressed with code language and standards that address their unique standards and the conditions that those properties find themselves within. That is not beyond the authority of a municipality. It's quite consistent. And the public purposes related to the code are, as I mentioned before, primarily to facilitate redevelopment where obstacles prevent it. But in the case of the city dock area, it's also to bring about economic vitality and redevelopment on properties that are relatively underperforming, adjacent to a major investment in a public park. And if I have to remind the council members, once the public park and resilience project is implemented, the existing buildings there will be set about 4 feet below the surface of the park. What is waterfront for these properties now will not be waterfront looking out the front door. You'll be looking at a park. You'll be stepping down onto a surface to head into the front of these buildings. That's an adverse impact of a public improvement. This set of standards helps mitigate that impact by allowing multiple opportunities to use property more efficiently. And why in this area, not generally? Because this area is at the very peninsula, the edge of the city. There's no private property within the city behind this property. It's just the United States Naval Academy and a huge building, the biggest building in our area, the field house, which is the backdrop to this. So these small projections above the established regulatory height aren't as adverse as anywhere else in the city. They can fit in perfectly well against that big building that's set before there. So there are unique aspects of these collection of properties. There's 7 properties in all, not just one. There are multiple property owners, not just one. There's a public interest, as I've expressed here, that's tied to our comprehensive plan. And it's important for us to always keep that in mind, that the zoning authority that a municipality has isn't only about drawing district boundaries and saying what's allowed there is not allowed there. And it's about identifying what specifically is presenting itself, challenging issues and development. You might remember the transit or the form-based code. Form-based code is about specific changes that reflect the public's interest without regard to the general districting that the city has. So this is a technique that is provided for and recommended within our zoning ordinance. And I just wanted to share that with the council members and also get it on the record too, to give you the assurance that this type of zoning approach is valid and useful and helpful to advance the public interest.
Thank you, Mr. Jakubiec. Alderman Chandler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do want to touch on one portion of the legislation as amended as a whole, or as originally written, however we want to touch it. So both Alderman Huntley and I had requested a couple times for a presentation of some kind get made to HPC. I spoke with the chair again earlier this week. He said that had not happened. Without commenting up or down on these portions, because I do think there are some potential benefits, I do think allowing them to hear it out, especially with the additional amendments that we just put in today, is very beneficial. And I am begging one more time. I understand they can't give an up or down vote, but to just give them a little presentation. Really asking. That is all.
I didn't hear what you were.
For them to give a quick presentation to HPC. That's all I'm asking.
The staff to present to HPC on.
Oh,
Especially
yes.
just with what we got it as amended. I do think it's really good, but I think HPC needs to just hear their piece and have their say. That's all. Thank you.
Before it goes to city council.
Not a lot of time. Not a lot of time left, but I was pushing for this earlier in the year.
No, I think you're right in
But
doing that, but
I'm not going to kill the whole legislation over this, but I've said my piece on this a couple times, including at the Housing and Human Welfare meeting.
Okay, thank you, and I trust that staff will make every effort to make that happen, Alderman. So I think, did we take a motion to approve, or no, we don't have a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve as recommended.
with the 5 amendments,
As amended by the Rules
Six,
Committee.
right?
Yes, as amended by the Rules
Second.
Committee.
Okay. It's been second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Alderman Savage, are you going to entertain a motion for environmental matters?
No, I'm not. There's more discussion still for environmental matters.
We have-
There's no time deadline for Ms. Jackson. So, yeah, I want to go back to Amendment 6 for environmental matters.
So we have a
Because-
meeting on Thursday, so is that when we're going to take that up?
Sorry?
I said, are we planning to take that up at environmental matters on,
No, we're doing it right now at the joint meeting.
what
So,
time is it there? Isn't it 3:00?
we're not talking, we're talking about 014 at today's environmental matters. So going back to Amendment 6, Alderman Arnett, I think people were so I tried to give a good summary of this. And I just want to go back because I don't like the idea of waiting until the next council. In particular, Alderman Arnett, we've had plenty of discussions over the years. We've worked together about impacts of growth and density. I'm trying to provide a way forward. We both have talked about how it's irresponsible planning to allow for growth without addressing any of the impacts, particularly infrastructure impacts. And that's what I think this underlying ordinance does. I'm trying to fix that, trying to respond to my constituent concerns, trying to have closer adherence to the comprehensive plan, which calls for these things. Because what I don't understand is why would you not include some of these solutions for transit, incorporate the ideas of furthering mobility options that we talk about in the comp plan? Why would you not include that in some of the plan development code that you're proposing? Because you're granting these density increases, again, without any kind of requirements from the developers. So what I'm trying to do is get that incorporated. And ideally, yeah, I would want more time to work with you on, and the planning commission, but we're put in this situation of the 11th hour. We don't have time. We don't have time to go back to the planning commission. But that is why I approached both you and the planning commission back in July with an outline of what I was looking for. I never received amendments that I requested from staff. Planning commission decided to kick the can down the road, even though they did say it's important to discuss. But I can't in good conscience approve any density increase unless we have a solution in mind for the public and the public impact. And I thought, Alderman Arnett, you had the same idea, but I've worked probably 10 hours on these amendments in good faith. I'm trying to get these in good form. We've had a lot of back and forth. I'm trying to provide a solution forward. If people have a different way forward, please let me know. But I think it's, again, irresponsible for us just to kick the can down the road on this. I just, waiting to the next council is just, it's not quite fair, because again, I think every proposal to increase density should be accompanied by this type of a conversation. And I don't want to gamble on the next council. It should be done today. It should be done even with, we've talked about with the ADU and the duplexes, all those conversations. We should be having this. We should have been having these conversations about transit with all of those proposals.
So, Mr. Chair, as a member of the Environmental Matters, I will make a motion that Environmental Matters accept the Savage Amendment number 6 to the ordinance 014-20.
Is there a second? All right, I'll second. All those in favor, please say aye. Or sorry, any other discussion?
I'd like to make a comment, and that is simply that we heard from the director, our professional staff, and we do a great job hiring our professional staff, and it would be prudent for us to follow the advice. You know, we all can't have what we want when we want it. And it's very disappointing that, Alderman, you will be coming back to the council in a guaranteed position, and you're not willing to further this discussion to make sure everyone is comfortable, and everyone is not comfortable. But because it's your will, you want to insist that this move forward now. You will have lots of opportunities with future councils to convince them of your way of thinking. And move your preferred legislation forward. But to insist now without much further discussion, without the planning commission, and without heeding the advice of our staff, I think is grossly inappropriate. So, and I will vote against the proposed amendment.
Okay. Well, what I find discouraging is that legislation is being pushed forward at the 11th hour without allowing adequate time to have deliberation on these serious questions that are not just mine, but our constituents. That is not fair to the public, and it's not fair to the planning commission, and no, it's not fair to staff or ourselves. This is not how we should be. So frankly, the whole legislation, I think, should go down in flames. it's not fair for have something this substantive, because you could say the same thing. There is no urgency. We don't have to do this legislation this year. We don't have to do it now. There's no urgency. We could wait to the new council and have a deliberative discussion. I would prefer that, in fact. So let's vote down this entire piece of legislation. But I don't think I have the votes to do that. So I'm trying to move forward, to come together, to address my constituents' concerns, my own concerns. I'm trying to do it with the constraints we have. I don't see any other option, because I'm also being told, well, we're not changing, we're not accepting this, so you don't have time to discuss it. I'm put in a bind. So I'm doing the best I can with this. I don't think it's going to slow down development. These are proposals that come from other jurisdictions, mechanisms that are used by other jurisdictions that have a lot more growth than we do. I don't think it's going to drive up costs because we are allowing for an incredible density increase if this were to pass. So I also think that, you know, I'm trying to really give respect. Our staff worked so hard on the comprehensive plan. And that is supposed to guide all of our decisions. And again, it doesn't give me a good feeling when I see the comp plan, we're kind of cherry picking the comp plan, taking pieces of it. If we're going to take it seriously, let's apply it as a comprehensive document to everything we do. And it was not done on this legislation, period. So with that, I think I'll end my soapbox, get off my soapbox. Alderman Schandermeyer.
He's not on.
I know he's still allowed to speak.
So I'm an outsider on this. I was trying to play peacemaker on rules, but your committee, I understand why you'd wish to put forward a vote. There aren't many people who scream or shout about housing and how do we develop it cheaper and better more on this council than me. I think this was written in good faith. I understand certain concerns, especially when there are a lot of moving parts. I do think trying to maybe hammer out here or there after this meeting what the specific issue our planning and zoning director has is worth it, but shooting this whole thing down, I think is, and by this whole thing, I mean Amendment 6, I think is throwing the baby out with the bathwater, especially when you consider if they meet all your standards, they get up to 200% density. That's a pretty big.
Thank you, Mr. Alderman. With that, we still have a vote to take on environmental matters. So all those in favor of recommending favorable to Amendment 6, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Is there a motion from environmental matters to move 01425 as amended by the committee?
So move.
Is there a second? I'll second it. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes environmental matters deliberation on 01425. Is there a motion to?
Yeah, you can adjourn initially.
Okay. Is there a motion from environmental matters to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second? All those in favor of adjourning environmental matters, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. I turn it over to you, Madam Chair, for rules.
Thank you. Rules Committee. Yes,
Sheila,
ma'am.
we have to adjourn the joint meeting and give
Okay.
TV a few minutes to switch over to the regular rules committee meeting.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn rules.
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll be back in 10 minutes?
I think 10 to 20.
Yeah, yes.